Welcome back to AutoLooks.net. I'm Everett, and this week we're looking at the evolution of the station wagon. Now, it seems just like yesterday we were all cramming into the back of our large woody panel station wagon and heading for the drive-ins. Sure, those days are gone, basically left behind by the influx of the minivan era, which soon gave way to the SUV and now crossover utility era. Did we actually trade in our station wagons, or did we actually just evolve into a new type of station wagon? The minivan was a major change to the industry. It made the van more affordable to consumers, along with providing them a lot more ample cargo room than most station wagons. Plus, the minivan did provide a lot of better fuel mileage compared to your big, clunky V8 powered station wagons. Yes, we get it. Those things are actually starting to come back in style. We're starting to see them on Barrett Jackson going for a lot more money. But the minivan did pave the way for what soon became the SUV craze. Now, why did this happen? This happened because people like me, men, yes, we all said we don't want to drive around in a grilled up, oversized dorkmobile, essentially. Because a minivan essentially just is an oversized hatchback with sliding side doors. Now, this has been showcased as the women's vehicle. This is something you buy your wife to get them to go grab groceries. Yes, there are a lot of men out there who do like minivans. I, for one, do actually like the brand new Pacifica. I do like the Buick GL8, along with the GAC GL8, GM8. They're great vehicles, and I would actually buy them. But I still prefer the look and feel of an SUV. Now, the evolution from the minivan to the SUV, what essentially was the SUV? Now, original SUV was a body-on-frame vehicle that took you anywhere. It was a Jeep or a Bronco or a Suburban. It went everywhere. It did everything. It's what you pile all your stuff and all your friends into to go hunting on the weekend, way out in the back bush. Long before we can ever just stick a quad in the back of our truck and go way out there, or side by side these days. Now, this basically paved the way for the new crossover utility vehicles, because yet again we were de-evolving ourselves back into the minivan era, saying, hey, SUVs are great, they're big, they're powerful, but they consume way too much gas. And you gotta remember, SUVs were developed back in World War II when the Jeep actually came out. Now, the station wagon was still in existence back then, and the SUV never took over for it back after the World War. That's because back then, a Jeep or a Bronco only came with two doors. And you really don't want to stick your whole family in it. Sure, Willys did come out with their own, suburban style vehicles back then, and Dodge created power wagons. You have all those things back then. But they never really took off because, yet again, they were more expensive than the station wagon. And just the perception of it. When people back then saw big, clunky SUVs like that, they said, hey, those guys are going hunting or they're going into the bush. They're not bringing their families around. Now, this perception has changed in the 90s with the craze of the SUVs. But like I said, we're now moving into the crossover utility vehicles, which is actually going back onto the body-on-frame. So taking a look back to our original setting here, did we actually evolve the station wagon? You gotta remember, the station wagon started out in the 50s as a family mover. It moved into the 60s and into the 70s. Now, by the late 70s, people are starting to move into microvans versus, say, the original minivan, the Volkswagen microbus, or the large, GM, Dodge, Chevrolet, Ford panel vans that they had back then. People are starting to get into those. Why? Because you could put a water bed in it. You could bring all your cool friends along. Now, this is long before people started thinking about, hey, I need a family. But families back then were still buying station wagons. Why? Because you can stick the whole family in, go to the drive-in, the kids can fall asleep in the back, you can just drive home. In a van like that, they'd be standing up, looking over top of you. Unlike in a station wagon where they're sitting down in the back seat and they can see. Now, this became the minivan, this became the SUV, and now we're going back to the crossover utility vehicle, a body-on-frame vehicle that gets better gas mileage. Now, if you want to actually see how the station wagon has evolved from where it once was in the 50s to today, you can take a quick look at what some of the vehicles that we have today, the crossovers. Take a look at the Dodge Journey, or take a look over the crossover utility vehicle like a Mazda CX-9. Essentially, lower their ground clearance and drop their hood light down slightly. What do you get on that? You get a station wagon. Now, we wouldn't actually classify it as a station wagon, but essentially a Dodge Journey, Mazda CX-9, brand new Ford Explorers, Chevrolet Traverses. They're all essentially the evolution of the station wagon. No, we haven't given up on the station wagon, and I know in Europe they're still hanging on by a thread to the station wagons, with a lot of luxury manufacturers still building them. A lot of commonplace manufacturers have given up on them. Opel, Vauxhall, not a lot of them have station wagons in their lineup anymore. If they do, they keep them as the cross-track models because people still perceive it as a station wagon. If you add a little bit of plastic body cladding and a higher rise, you can go anywhere and do anything with it, right? It's not a station wagon then. It's more a crossover utility vehicle, or SUV, as some people call them. It's not. SUV is defined by body on frame. Crossover utility vehicle is a unibody vehicle. That's why a Jeep is still an SUV, and a Ford Explorer these days is not considered a CUV. Now, essentially, like we're getting back to the original concept, has the wagon disappeared from our mindsets? No. It has actually just evolved into something else that we perceive not as a station wagon, but in the back of our minds, we still perceive it as the exact same thing for our families. These days, I can pile my whole family into my Mazda CX-9. I can go find, well, I gotta drive a long ways for one, but the closest drive-in with my whole family. And the kids fall asleep. Well, these days they can't fall asleep on the floor and I drive home. They gotta fall asleep in their seats with their seatbelts on, with popcorn at their feet. But essentially, I'm doing the same thing my parents did with that big old Ford station wagon we had back in the late 80s. Yes, I loved it. It was great. It was fun. And we've evolved from that wagon into what's sitting in my driveway these days. So from all of us at AutoLooks, we're just saying, hey, not everything essentially dies in the automotive industry. It just evolves and is given a new name. And that new name is a crossover. So from all of us at AutoLooks, hold on and hang on for this wild ride from AutoLooks.net. And keep watching our feed.